Welcome to our CASA training video. I'm Joel Byron. Now first on this video you'll hear the judge speak. She'll lay the groundwork for the case and give the name of the case. She'll ask if there are any preliminary questions or preliminary matters that need to be addressed. There aren't any in this case. And she'll ask for all the parties to identify themselves for the record. Now during a trial there's actually a recording being made. That way later on if there's any questions, a transcript can be made and reviewed. And whoever's making the transcript needs to know who's speaking, so that's why we say what our names are.
Good afternoon. We're here today on District Court docket number PC 2014 involving the children John and Frank F. This is a request for a summary preliminary hearing order. I would ask that each of the attorneys identify themselves for the record, tell me who they represent, and whether their client is present.
Megan Sylvian, Assistant Attorney General, present with Michelle Freeman, the DHHS caseworker.
Joel Byron, present with the father, Brian Frost.
Heidi Bushart, present with the mother, Sally Jones.
Is there a guardian?
Sally Kettle, guardian Ed Lemon.
Thank you. All right, any preliminary matters before we start the hearing?
No, Your Honor.
Anything for either parents, attorneys, guardian?
After these preliminary matters are taken care of, the state goes first. The state is represented by an Assistant Attorney General, an AAG, and in this case, her first witness will be the caseworker from the Department of Health and Human Services. The caseworker can set out a roadmap of this case to make it clear what's going on. After she's done that, it's time for cross-examination. The other parties can ask her questions. The CASA is allowed to ask questions as well. Now this isn't an opportunity to find out new information. You should only be asking questions that you know the answer to. And those answers you think are important pieces of evidence that the judge should know in order to decide the case. Listen to how this CASA does it. I think she does a good job questioning the witness.
All right then, the state may proceed.
The state calls Michelle Freeman.
And you solemnly swear or affirm that you will do the best to tell the truth in this mock trial. May be seated.
Good afternoon, Ms. Freeman. Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record? Michelle Freeman. F-R-E-E-M-A-N. And you are a caseworker for the department? Yes. Are you also a licensed social worker? Yes. How long have you been doing that work? 8 years. And you're the caseworker assigned to John and Frank F., is that right? Yes. And how old are John and Frank? Frank is 8 years old. John is 6 months old. And who are John and Frank's parents? Their mother is Sally Jones. Father is Ryan Frost. And at the time that this petition arose, who was living in the home with the children? Sally Jones. The father is not living in the home? Correct. Can you describe for us the initial report that came into the department? The initial report came through, it was called into by emergency medical response personnel who indicated they had received a call from Frank Jones indicating that his mother had attempted suicide. And was there any details about the suicide attempt that were provided in the initial report? Yes. What were those details? The details were that she had attempted suicide by cutting both of her wrists while under the influence of alcohol and Xanax. Was there any information in the initial report about where the children were at the time of the suicide attempt? Yes. Where were the children? Both children were in the home at the time. And did the suicide attempt take place in the home? Yes, it did. And are you the caseworker who was assigned to the initial assessment? Yes. Did you go to the home to begin that assessment? Yes. Can you describe the condition of the home when you arrived? The condition of the home was in disarray. There was alcohol bottles and prescription pill bottles pill bottles located on the coffee table in the living room. There were rodent droppings located in the kitchen of the home. There was a large amount of blood found in the home as well. There were clothes that appeared to have been in the process of being washed in the bathtub, and other items sort of strewn around the house.
Do you have an idea or an impression of how long after the suicide attempt you were entering the home to assess?
It was shortly thereafter.
Was it the same day?
Yes.
And where were the children when you arrived?
The children were in the apartment.
Can you describe the condition of the children or your observations of how the children appeared to you?
Both children were observed to be extremely dirty. Frank was actually covered in a large amount of blood from attempting to help his mother. And the baby was observed to be also not clean. They were both in dirty clothing.
Did you have any impression of either child's emotional state when you arrived to assess?
Yes.
And how were the kids doing?
They were both pretty frantic. Frank was very upset when the emergency medical technicians attempted to remove him from his brother's, remove the baby from his care. Presented as very afraid to be in contact with his brother.
And did you have an opportunity to speak with Frank?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did Frank report to you that was of concern?
He reported to me that Mommy had cut her wrists, and he reported that he had been taking care of his brother. He reported he was not in school that day because he watches his brother when his mommy is sick, as he put it. And he also explained that he had been washing clothes, which were the clothes that were located in the bathtub.
And did Frank express to you any alternative caregivers that ever provide care for either child?
Yes.
Who did he explain watches them?
I believe he indicated that it was a Mary Smith. I could be wrong.
We're looking at a copy of your affidavit, help refresh your recollection.
Yes.
May I approach your honor?
Janice White.
And does the department have any concerns about Janice White providing care for either of his children?
Yes.
What are your concerns?
The concerns are that Janice has a very well-documented history of being involved in the child protective system. She has, her own children were removed from her care and not returned. She has prior issues with substances as well, and is not a safe caregiver.
And did the department arrange for alternative placement for the two boys at that time at the end of your assessment?
Yes.
And subsequently, have you had an opportunity to complete an assessment on Ryan Frost, the father of both children?
We have not made face-to-face contact. We've done a complete interview with Mr. Frost, but we have collected some collateral information.
Can you describe the collateral information that has been collected and what, if any, concerns the department has based on that information?
Yes, we have a history of a report that was received in 2008 indicating that he had been arrested for domestic violence assault to the mother of the children. We also have his arrest record, which indicates another domestic violence assault to a previous partner.
And to your knowledge, has Mr. Frost engaged in any services to address domestic violence at this time?
No, he was offered services in the previous 2008 case, and he refused all recommended services.
And do you have any information about what, if any, relationship Mr. Frost has with one or both of the boys?
Mr. Frost has a very minimal relationship with the boys. He has seen them approximately 2 or 3 times in their lifetime.
And so, given all this information from your assessment, you filed a PPO in this case.
Yes.
You filed an affidavit in support of that PPO. Do you swear to and reaffirm the facts in that affidavit as true to the best of your knowledge and belief as you sit here today?
Yes.
And where are the children placed?
The children are placed with their maternal aunt.
And are their needs met in that placement?
Yes.
Is that placement safe and appropriate?
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to arrange visitation for the mother or the father at this point?
No, not at this point.
And why is that?
Ms. Jones has been hospitalized. She was recently released from the hospital. Mr. Frost has not been able to get in contact with.
And And so has the department at this point been able to craft a reunification plan with participation from the parents?
No.
And will the department schedule a family team meeting to address visitation and reunification services?
Yes.
Other questions?
Have council decided who would go next?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right.
You indicated that when the child called 911, he said his mother tried to commit suicide. Is that what he actually said?
I would have to look to get the exact wording. I don't recall the exact.
If he had said that, would it have been likely included in your report?
I'm sorry.
If he had said that, would you have included that in your report?
Yes.
And so if it's not in your report, it would be fair to say that he didn't say his mother committed suicide, was trying to commit suicide?
I'm confused as to which report.
Your affidavit in support of the preliminary protection order?
What was the question?
If it was not in your report, is it safe to assume that he didn't say that?
Yes.
Thank you. You also indicated that there were what appeared to be rodent droppings throughout the kitchen. I mean, is it possible that perhaps it was Chuck or Jimmy's?
No, it did not appear to be a food product.
So there's a difference, you think, between rodent droppings and perhaps the kids making ice cream sundaes and dropping Jimmy's on the floor?
Yes.
You indicated that you said Janice White was an unsafe caregiver, is that correct?
Yes.
Due to substance abuse issues? Is that correct?
Yes.
Are you aware she's received any substance abuse treatment?
I am not aware of that.
So, without that information, how would you determine whether she's currently a safe caregiver?
We would, like, if she has obtained treatment for her substance abuse, we would, take that into consideration, but at the time, that information was not accessible to us.
Okay, so it is possible that she was a safe caregiver and that my client didn't intentionally leave her children with someone that was not safe.
If she had obtained treatment, perhaps, yes.
Thank you.
Guardian, have any questions?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. I believe you had told me that Ms. White also has lost custody of 3 of her children previously. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Would that be another reason that you would have had some concerns about her ability to safely care for the child?
Yes.
In addition to the fact that the child told you that when he was with Ms. White, she wasn't kind to him, that she was mean to him as well?
Correct.
Any further questions for the department?
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
Anyone else have any more questions? All right, thank you. You may step down.
Next, the AAG calls the CASA to the stand. And this is another opportunity to lay the foundation for the case and to maybe fill in any holes that the caseworker left. But the CASA will also be questioned about how she did her investigation. So don't worry, just answer honestly and truthfully, even during cross-examination where the parent attorneys may try to challenge how you did your investigation.
Witness.
The state calls Allie Campbell, guardian ad litem.
You swear to do your best here today in testifying?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, Alan Campbell, K-P-P-E-L.
And you are a CASA volunteer for the state of Maine and guardian ad litem. And you have been assigned as the guardian ad litem for John F. and Frank F. Is that right? And you filed a report in support of the department's petition today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so at the time, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your report. At the time the petition was filed, the mother was still inpatient hospitalized. Is that right? Did you have an opportunity to actually meet with the mother while she was hospitalized? Can you tell the court about that visit and specifically whether you had any concerns based on your visit with the mother?
Yes, I met with Ms. Jones in in my opinion, was denial of the circumstances under which she placed her children, the risk in which she placed her children.
So when you say denial and lack of acknowledgement about the circumstances, how did she explain to you what happened that day?
She could not explain it. She said it was simply an accident that she couldn't explain.
And was she referring to the cuts on her arms when you say she said that was an accident?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to meet with the father in this case?
I have not been able to contact him.
Have you had an opportunity to visit one or both children?
Yes, I visited them in their current placement with maternal aunt.
Were the relative caregivers present when you met with the children? So were you able to speak with them as well?
Yes, he was.
And based on your interactions with the kids and your observation of the home and that relationship, is that a safe and appropriate placement for both boys at this time?
Yes, it is.
Do you feel that their needs are being met in that placement?
Yes, I do.
And in your report, you've made a series of recommendations here for both the children and the parents. Is there anything that you'd like to add to those recommendations, or would you like to just rest on the report?
I would rest on my report this time.
No other questions?
The court has a copy of the guardian's report. I'm assuming since there were no objections that each of the council has received the guardian's report.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Pusher, do you wish to proceed next or ask the guardian any questions?
I would have this. So you indicated that my client failed to acknowledge her mental health needs, but in fact, didn't she tell you that she suffered from anxiety disorder?
Yes.
And didn't she indicate to you that she takes medication for that?
She did.
Okay, so isn't that some sort of acknowledgement that she has some mental health issues?
Yes, I would say I probably should have specified her acknowledgement of the need for treatment.
Okay, do you know if she's under a treating physician?
I believe she is not.
Do you know where she's getting the prescription for Xanax?
I do not.
Wouldn't one normally get that from a physician?
Yes.
Okay. And so if she's has a diagnosis, she's reporting to you and is taking medication, isn't that receiving treatment?
Yes, it is. However, when I met with your client, I asked her if she had a current treating physician, and she wasn't able to specify who it was.
Okay. So because she wasn't able to give you a name at that time, did you assume that to mean she doesn't have a doctor?
I would assume it to mean that if she can't tell me who prescribed her medication, and she doesn't have an active treating physician.
Did you ask to see the medication bottle so you could look and see the name of the treating physician? Did you look in the medical records to see if there was a list of a physician for her?
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Byron?
In your report, you indicate that Sally thinks that Ryan is a good parent when he is sober. If you could prove that he was sober and could stay sober for a long time, would that affect your opinion in this case?
Yes, to a certain degree. There would be other factors involved as well.
But sobriety would be an important factor.
Yes.
No further questions. Thank you.
Now, would you like to say anything further? You indicated before cross-examination that you wanted to rest on your report, but you've had some questioning here, so is there anything you'd like to state?
Not that I can think of right now. As soon as I step down, sure.
All right. Department, have any questions, further questions for the guardian?
Yes, Your Honor, just quickly. When you were assessing the mother at the hospital, you noted in your report you also had the opportunity to speak with Clark Ellis, a hospital social worker. And you've written in your report that he reported to you that Sally has refused to participate in group therapy, has been resistant to individual psychotherapy, and exhibits drug-seeking behavior. Does that cause you any concern for child safety?
Yes.
What are your concerns?
Well, related to what I was saying earlier, that if she is unwilling to acknowledge
groups and individual psychotherapy. Do you have some indication of what she is participating in?
I'm not clear what you would mean.
You've listed two things that she's not participating in. She's not participating in group and not participating in individual psychotherapy. Is she participating in mental health treatment?
In what?
Mental health treatment?
Not according to the social worker I interviewed at the hospital, Mr. Ellis.
Okay, so
And not according to anything that Ms. Jones told me when I interviewed her.
So it doesn't, your report doesn't indicate that she's not participating in mental health, it just says psychotherapy.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay, so are you aware if she's participating in any services, or are you just aware of the two that she's not participating in?
I am not aware if she's participating in any other services related to any other issues.
Wouldn't that be something important to know?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, yeah.
It's not clear to me what the status is of the guardian's report. Is this going to be moved into evidence as an exhibit?
I believe the guardian indicated on direct that she has filed a report with the court previously.
She has.
And so we'd ask the court to consider it, take judicial notice of the guardian's report in the file.
All right. And everyone has a copy of the report, is that correct?
I would say, Your Honor, I do have a copy of the report, but I just received it today, and that's not sufficient notice for my client, and I took one over it, so I would object to the submission based on those grounds.
This is a summary hearing, and in a summary hearing, the statute does not require that the guardian file any report. So I can give you a recess for more time to go over it, but it's certainly more advantageous to you and your client to have something in writing than nothing at all. So while I understand your concerns, I'm going to overrule your objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you want a recess?
No, Your Honor.
I'm not clear, based on the testimony I've heard. And so there's a sentence in your report here talking about Clark Ellis. And then Ms. Pushett asked you a question about what services her client was receiving. And so I'd just like you to look at that part that I highlighted and read when I was reading this before the hearing, and tell me what efforts you made to find out what services Ms. Pushett's client was receiving and what you learned. And what we're looking at is the second page, bottom of the second paragraph where it talks about Clark Ellis.
Well, my understanding when I interviewed Mr. Ellis was that he was speaking on behalf of the hospital, and any and all services that Sally, I think, offered while she was there, and that they included therapy, group therapy, individual psychotherapy, and I would assume the exhibits of drug-seeking behavior services that would address that. And at the time that I did the interview, I made the assumption, perhaps I shouldn't have, that that was pretty well encompassing in circumstances.
So what is Mr. Ellis's role for the hospital?
He represents, as I understood it in speaking to him, the psychosocial and psychiatric aspects of providing coordinated services on behalf of clients and patients that enter under the circumstances that Ms. Jones did.
All right. Do you need to get something in here?
Yes, certainly.
Come right here. And while she's retrieving some court files, does anyone else have any questions as a result of my questions? Let me just start with the department, and then, do you have any questions as a result of my questions?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Busher, do you have any questions as a result of the court's questions?
I do, Your Honor.
Certainly.
So, you indicate that Clark Ellis said that Ms. Jones had refused any and all services. That's not what your report says, correct?
Correct.
Your report, in fact, says that she refused to participate in group and was resistant to individual psychotherapy, correct?
Correct.
It doesn't actually say she wasn't participating in psychotherapy or any other kind of treatment.
Well,
It just says she was resistant. Isn't there a difference between refusing and resistant?
my understanding in speaking with Mr. Ellis was that they were one and the same thing. That she was refusing and resisting. It was the same thing. She was not participating in treatment, nor was she wasn't participating.
In your everyday vocabulary, would you associate refusing and resistance to be the same?
Under the circumstances, I was using it comparably, yes.
So it's your understanding that what you have reported to be resistant is that she was not participating in individual psychotherapy. Is that what your testimony is?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Byron,
No further questions, Your Honor.
anyone, do you have anything else you want to say, Mr. Guardian?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. You may step down. Take your report. Thank you. Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, the state rests.